Most people don't lose opportunities because they're not good enough. They lose them in the first 10 seconds. And the worst part is, they don't even realize it's happening. You ever sit in a coffee shop just watching people come and go? Watching how they walk in, how they look around, how they speak to the barista like it's just another transaction to get through. There's this pattern you start to notice after a while. The ones who rush in, phones still in their hand, voice slightly out of breath, eyes scanning the room like they're already late for something else. Those people disappear the moment they sit down. Nobody looks at them twice. Nobody remembers their face. And then there's the other type. Same place, same coffee, same tired Monday morning. But they walk in like time bends a little around them. Not slow in a lazy way, not dramatic like they're trying to perform, just deliberate. Like every step has a reason. They pause for half a second before speaking, not because they're unsure, but because they don't feel the need to rush their existence. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. The world makes decisions about you before you even open your mouth. And it's not based on your potential, your ideas, or how hard you've struggled to get where you are. It's based on signals, tiny ones. The way your shoulders sit when you walk through a door. The way your eyes either hold or escape when someone looks back at you. The way your voice either lands or slips through people like background noise. You can spend years building skills, stacking knowledge, grinding through late nights thinking that's what will finally earn you respect. And then lose all of it because you rushed a greeting, mumbled a sentence, or looked away too soon. That's the game nobody explains. There's always someone out there, less prepared than you, less talented, less experienced, and somehow they're the one getting the opportunity, the attention, the seat at the table. Not because life is unfair, no, it's actually much simpler than that. They've just learned how to show up in a way that people can't ignore. And most people, they never even question it. They blame luck. They blame timing. They tell themselves a story that makes it easier to sleep at night. I'm just not that type of person. But that's not true. It was never about personality. It was always about patterns. Habits so small they feel insignificant in the moment. The way you walk into a room when nobody is clapping. The way you respond when someone cuts you off mid-sentence. The way you handle silence without trying to fill it like it's some kind of emergency. These things don't feel important until you realize they're deciding everything. And the harshest part? You've probably been taught the opposite your entire life. Move fast, speak up, be energetic, show enthusiasm, fill the space so people notice you. But watch closely. The people who actually hold power in a room rarely do any of that. They don't chase attention. They don't rush to prove themselves. They don't overload conversations with words just to feel seen. They understand something most people miss. Presence isn't about doing more, it's about needing less. Less noise, less approval, less urgency. And when you strip all that away, what's left is something most people aren't comfortable facing, themselves. Because the moment you slow down, really slow down, there's no hiding anymore. No rushing past your own thoughts. No covering insecurity with speed or volume. Just you, standing there, fully visible. And that's where most people break. That's why they keep moving fast, keep talking, keep distracting themselves, because stillness feels like exposure. But here's the shift. The moment you stop running from that feeling, everything changes. You stop reacting to life and start choosing how you show up in it. Your movements become intentional. Your words start to carry weight. People begin to listen, not because you demanded it, but because there's something about you that feels certain. Not loud, not flashy, just solid. And in a world where everyone is rushing, over-explaining, over-performing, that kind of presence stands out like silence in a crowded room. So the real question isn't whether you're confident or not. That's too surface level. The real question is this: are your daily habits signaling control, or are they quietly telling the world you're still trying to keep up? Because whether you like it or not, people are reading you long before you get the chance to explain yourself. And by the time you do, most of them have already decided who you are. There was this stretch of time, not too long ago, when everything felt like it was moving just a little too fast for a man named Eric. And the strange part was, nothing in his life looked chaotic on the surface. He had a stable job at a mid-sized marketing firm, the kind of place where the coffee machine was always broken, and everyone pretended deadlines were more urgent than they actually were. He paid his bills on time, answered emails quicker than most, showed up early just to prove, mostly to himself, that he was doing things right. But if you watched him closely, really watched him the way you watch someone through a rain-streaked window while you're waiting for your own life to catch up, you'd notice something subtle, something easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. Eric was always in a hurry, even when there was nowhere to go. He walked like he was late, spoke like he was being timed, nodded through conversations like he had already moved on before the other person finished their sentence. It wasn't panic exactly, more like a constant low-level urgency humming under his skin, like a phone vibrating in his pocket that he couldn't turn off. And the thing is, nobody ever pulled him aside and said, "Hey, you're rushing through your own life." Because from the outside, it just looked like efficiency, like drive, like ambition, the kind of traits people clap for in meetings and reward with more work. But then there was Marcus. Now Marcus didn't look like competition. Late 30s, average build, wore the same rotation of plain shirts that fit just right. Not tight, not loose, just intentional enough that you couldn't point to anything wrong with them. He wasn't louder than Eric, wasn't smarter on paper, didn't even contribute as often during meetings. In fact, if you counted words, Eric probably spoke 3 times as much. And yet, when Marcus did speak, something shifted in the room. People stopped typing. Someone would glance up. Even the manager, guy who checked his watch like it owed him money, would lean back just slightly, like he didn't want to miss what was about to be said. It didn't happen all at once, not in some cinematic moment where Eric suddenly realized the truth and everything slowed down around him. No, it crept in gradually, the way most real things do. First, it was the meetings. Eric would throw out ideas quickly, stacking them one after another, trying to cover all angles before anyone could question him. His voice just a little too fast, his sentences bleeding into each other. Marcus would wait. Sometimes he wouldn't say anything at all for the first 10 minutes. Just sit there, listening, hands still, eyes steady, not darting around the room, not glued to his phone under the table, just present in a way that felt rare. And then, when there was a pause, not a big dramatic silence, just that small natural gap most people rush to fill, Marcus would step in. 1 sentence, maybe 2, clear, direct, no extra explanation, no padding, no verbal clutter to make it sound smarter than it needed to be. And that was enough. Somehow, that was always enough. Then there were the smaller moments, the ones nobody writes about but somehow matter more. Like the way Marcus walked into the office in the morning. No headphones blasting noise into his ears, no frantic typing on his phone while navigating through people. He'd walk in, look around, actually look, like he registered the space, the people in it, give a simple nod or a quiet morning that didn't feel automatic. It landed. You could feel it land. Eric, on the other hand, would slip in like a gust of wind that didn't leave anything behind. Quick hey over his shoulder, already halfway to his desk before anyone could respond. And it's not that people disliked Eric. That's the tricky part. He was fine, easy to work with, reliable. But fine is invisible in most rooms. Fine doesn't stay in people's memory after they leave. Fine doesn't get called into the room when decisions are being made. Weeks went by like this, small differences stacking up in ways Eric couldn't quite articulate, but could definitely feel. Marcus started getting pulled into side conversations after meetings, the kind where real decisions happen, the kind nobody announces. Eric noticed it the way you notice a door closing just before you reach it. Not dramatic, just slightly off timing. And then one afternoon, something simple happened. The kind of moment most people would brush off without a second thought. They were both standing by the coffee machine, still broken of course, waiting for it to do its slow, inconsistent job. Eric was talking, explaining some issue with a client, words coming out fast, layered with frustration, trying to make sure he covered every detail so there wouldn't be any misunderstanding. Marcus listened, didn't interrupt, didn't nod excessively like he was trying to prove he was engaged, just listened. When Eric finished, there was a small pause, just a second, maybe less, the kind of silence Eric usually rushed to fill. But this time, Marcus held it, looked at him, steady, like he wasn't afraid of that space. And then he said, calmly, "Sounds like you're trying to fix too many things at once." That was it. No long explanation, no lecture, just one sentence. And for some reason, it hit harder than everything Eric had just said combined. Not because it was smarter, but because it was clean, uncluttered. It didn't chase validation. It didn't try to impress. It just existed, solid and complete. And that's when it started to click. Not all at once, but enough to make Eric uncomfortable in a way that felt honest. He began to notice his own patterns, the way he rushed through greetings like they were checkpoints instead of moments, the way he broke eye contact just a fraction too early, like he didn't want to hold it long enough for someone to really see him, the way he filled silence with extra words, as if quiet meant he was losing ground. It wasn't confidence he was lacking, not exactly. It was control, or more specifically, the lack of it. Because every rushed movement, every unnecessary word, every avoided glance, it all pointed to the same thing. He was reacting, constantly, to time, to people, to the invisible pressure he carried around like an unpaid bill. Marcus wasn't doing more. If anything, he was doing less. But what he did, he owned, completely. And that ownership, that quiet certainty, created something Eric had been chasing without realizing it. Presence. Not the kind you fake by standing up straighter or lowering your voice for effect, but the kind that comes from not needing to prove anything in the first place. So Eric started experimenting, quietly, without announcing it to anyone because that would have defeated the point. He slowed his walk, just a little at first, enough to feel the difference between moving with intention and just moving fast. He let conversations breathe instead of jumping in to fill every gap. He practiced holding eye contact a second longer than felt comfortable, not in a confrontational way, just enough to stop himself from escaping too early. It felt unnatural at first. Of course it did. Habits always do when you try to change them. There were moments he caught himself slipping back, rushing through a sentence, over-explaining a point that didn't need it, laughing a bit too quickly at something that didn't really land. But now, he noticed, and that changed everything. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you stop ignoring it, you start to realize something most people go their entire lives without understanding. The difference between being overlooked and being respected isn't some massive transformation. It's built in these small, almost invisible choices you make every single day. Choices about how you move, how you speak, how you show up when nobody's paying special attention. And the irony? These are the exact things most people ignore, while they're busy trying to fix everything else. What Eric didn't expect, what most people never see coming, is that confidence doesn't actually change how people treat you right away. It changes what they reveal to you. And that difference, that's where things get uncomfortable. Because once Eric started slowing down, really slowing down, not just in how he walked or spoke, but in how he reacted to everything around him, he began to notice things that had always been there, just buried under noise. Conversations, for example, stopped feeling like a blur of words and started to feel strategic. Not in a manipulative way, but in a, why is this person saying this right now, kind of way. He noticed how often people spoke just to fill space, how frequently they repeated themselves when they sensed they weren't being taken seriously, how quickly they laughed. Not because something was funny, but because silence made them uneasy. And the strange part? He recognized himself in all of it, like watching an old version of himself play out in real time through other people. But then something else surfaced, something the original version of him would have completely missed. Respect wasn't being given the way he thought it was. It wasn't about who worked the hardest or who had the best ideas sitting quietly in their notebook. It was being distributed based on perception, on signals people sent without realizing it, and signals others picked up on without thinking. There was a meeting one Thursday afternoon that made this painfully clear. Same conference room, same stale air, same half-charged laptops scattered across the table. Eric had prepared for it, like he always did. Notes organized, points lined up, even rehearsed a few sentences in his head while walking in. The old Eric would have started speaking early, getting his ideas out before someone else took the floor. But this time, he didn't. He sat back, listened, watched, and what he saw shifted something deeper than any self-help advice ever could. The loudest guy in the room, Jason, always Jason, was talking fast, jumping between ideas, cutting people off mid-sentence, trying to dominate the conversation like it was a race he couldn't afford to lose. And for a while, it worked. People nodded, some even agreed. But if you paid attention, not just to the words but to the reactions underneath, You could see it wearing thin, eyes drifting, fingers tapping on keyboards. That subtle disengagement nobody calls out, but everyone feels. Then there was Lisa, sharp, intelligent, clearly knew what she was doing. But every time she made a point, she'd follow it up with extra explanation, like she didn't trust it to stand on its own. "Does that make sense?" she'd ask, almost automatically. And right there, she gave away her position without realizing it. Not because her idea was weak, but because her delivery asked for permission instead of ownership. And then, Marcus, same as always, quiet, still, not trying to enter the conversation, just letting it unfold. 10 minutes passed, 15. The room filled with words, but very little clarity. And then it happened again, that small, almost invisible gap. No one spoke for maybe 2 seconds. And in that space, Marcus leaned forward slightly, not rushed, not hesitant, and said, "We're solving symptoms, not the actual problem." That was it. One sentence, clean, direct. And something in the room shifted, not dramatically. No one gasped or called it out, but you could feel it. The conversation recalibrated around that point. People started responding to him, not just talking over each other anymore. And that's when Eric understood something that wasn't in the original script he had been living by. Confidence isn't about adding more to yourself. It's about removing the behaviors that make people question you. It's subtraction, not addition. And most people are doing the opposite. They keep adding words, adding explanations, adding energy, thinking that's what will finally tip the scale. But all it does is dilute their presence. Later that day, Eric found himself in a smaller, more personal moment that drove the point even deeper. He was talking to a client over a video call. Nothing high stakes, just a routine check-in. In the past, he would have over-prepared, filled the call with updates, tried to anticipate every possible question before it was even asked. But this time, he approached it differently. He spoke when needed, stopped when the point was made, left space. And something unexpected happened. The client started talking more. Not just surface-level updates, but actual concerns, frustrations, things that weren't written in any report. And Eric realized, people don't open up when you dominate the space. They open up when you make it safe for them to step into it. That was new, and it changed how he saw every interaction moving forward. But here's where the twist cuts deeper than most people are ready for. Not everyone will respond well to this shift. Some people actually prefer the old version of you. The one who rushes, over-explains, seeks approval, because it makes them feel more in control. When you stop doing that, when you start holding your ground quietly, without announcing it, it unsettles them. Eric saw that too. Subtle at first. A coworker interrupting him more often than usual. Another one trying to talk over him, as if testing whether he'd fall back into old habits. Before, he would have reacted, sped up, spoken louder, tried to reclaim the space. But now, he didn't. He let them speak, waited. And when he responded, he didn't match their energy. He stayed steady. And that's when the dynamic flipped, not instantly, but noticeably. Because confidence, real confidence, doesn't compete. It doesn't rush to be heard. It assumes it will be. And over time, people start treating you based on that assumption. Not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it, consistently, in ways that are hard to argue with. And maybe the most uncomfortable realization of all, Eric started to see that the gap between where he was and where he wanted to be was never about talent or intelligence or even opportunity. It was about awareness. He had been moving through life on autopilot, repeating patterns he never questioned, reacting in ways he thought were normal because everyone around him was doing the same thing. But once he stepped out of that, even slightly, the entire landscape changed. He saw the invisible rules people were playing by, who commanded attention and why, who got overlooked and how, and more importantly, how easy it was to shift once you actually paid attention. Not easy in effort, but simple in structure. Slow down, speak less, mean more, hold your ground, don't rush to fill silence, don't ask for permission to exist in a space you've already earned your way into. These weren't dramatic transformations. No one would make a movie about them. But in real life, they were everything. Because they changed not just how others saw him, but how he saw the entire game. And once you see the game clearly, you stop playing it the way everyone else does. There's a point, somewhere between who you've been pretending to be and who you actually are, where things go quiet, and not the peaceful kind of quiet people post about. Not the kind with soft music and filtered sunlight. I'm talking about the kind that makes you shift in your seat, the kind that takes your phone out of your hand without asking, and leaves you alone with your own thoughts. Because once Eric stopped rushing, stopped filling every gap with noise, stopped reacting like every moment needed to be handled immediately, he ran into something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. And it wasn't failure. It wasn't fear of other people. It was himself, unfiltered, uninterrupted, with no performance left to hide behind. And at first, it didn't feel empowering. It felt heavy, like walking into a room where all the distractions had been cleared out. And now there was nothing left but the truth sitting there waiting for him to acknowledge it. Because when you're not rushing anymore, you start to notice how often you used speed as a shield. How many conversations you escaped early because staying present felt too exposing. How many times you spoke not because you had something to say, but because silence made you feel small. And that realization doesn't hit like motivation. It lands like weight, slow and undeniable. The kind that doesn't leave when the video ends or the music fades. It just stays there, asking you quietly, "So what now?" And that's where most people turn back. They pick the noise back up, scroll a little longer, talk a little faster, laugh a little louder, anything to avoid sitting in that space too long. Because that space demands something uncomfortable. It demands honesty. Not the kind you show other people, but the kind you can't fake when you're alone. The kind that forces you to admit that maybe you weren't overlooked. Maybe you were just not fully there, not fully present in your own life. Always halfway somewhere else, chasing the next thing, the next approval, the next distraction. And Eric started to see it everywhere, in the way he used to check his phone mid-conversation, like the person in front of him wasn't enough. In the way he would agree too quickly just to keep things smooth instead of saying what he actually thought. In the way he carried tension in his body without even realizing it. Shoulders slightly tight, jaw just a bit clenched, like he was bracing for something that never fully arrived. And once you see that in yourself, you can't ignore it anymore. It follows you into every room, every interaction, every quiet moment where there's no one else to blame or impress. Just you and the patterns you've been repeating for years without question. And the strange thing is, nothing external changes at first. The same job, the same people, the same routines, the same coffee that tastes slightly burnt no matter how much sugar you add. But internally, something shifts, slowly, like a dial being turned one notch at a time. And you start making different choices, not big dramatic ones, just small, almost invisible decisions that nobody else notices, but you feel immediately, like choosing not to interrupt someone even when you have something ready to say, like letting a moment of silence sit without rushing to fix it, like standing still instead of pacing when you're thinking, like breathing before you respond instead of reacting on instinct. And those moments, they stretch, they create space, and in that space, you start to feel something unfamiliar. Something most people confuse with boredom or discomfort, but it's neither. It's presence. Real presence. The kind that doesn't need validation to exist. The kind that doesn't panic when there's nothing happening. And at first, it feels slow, almost too slow, like you've stepped out of the rhythm everyone else is moving to. But then you realize that rhythm was never yours to begin with. It was borrowed, inherited, absorbed from a world that rewards speed over depth, noise over clarity, reaction over intention. And once you step out of it, even slightly, you start to see how much of life people are missing while they're busy trying to keep up. You see conversations that never go anywhere because no one is actually listening, just waiting for their turn to speak. You see decisions made too quickly because sitting with uncertainty feels uncomfortable. You see people performing versions of themselves they think will be accepted, approved, liked. And for the first time, you don't feel the need to join in. Not out of arrogance, not because you think you're better, but because you've tasted what it feels like to be still. And it's different, it's heavier, but it's real. And that reality starts to reshape how you carry yourself. Not in a visible, exaggerated way, but in subtle shifts that compound over time. Your posture changes without you forcing it because you're not collapsing into yourself anymore. Your voice steadies because you're not rushing to get it out. Your eyes hold a little longer because you're not trying to escape the moment. And people start to feel it, even if they can't explain it. They respond differently, not dramatically, not like in movies where everything changes overnight, but in small ways. They give you a second longer before interrupting. They listen a bit more closely when you speak. They pause instead of talking over you. And those moments, they build, quietly, the same way your old habits did, but in the opposite direction. And somewhere along the way, Eric realized that confidence wasn't something he needed to chase anymore. It wasn't out there waiting to be achieved. It was something that naturally emerged when he stopped abandoning himself in small ways, when he stopped trading his presence for approval, when he stopped treating every interaction like a test he had to pass, and started treating it like a moment he was allowed to exist in fully. And that shift, it doesn't come with applause. No one congratulates you for it. No one pulls you aside and says, "You've changed." In fact, most people won't notice at all. And that's the point, because this isn't about them. It never was. It's about the relationship you have with yourself when nobody's watching. When there's no audience, no feedback, no immediate reward. Just the quiet understanding that you're no longer running, no longer reacting, no longer hiding behind habits that kept you small. And in that stillness, in that space where nothing needs to be proven, you find something most people spend their lives searching for in all the wrong places. A kind of grounded certainty, not loud, not flashy, not something you can package into a quick lesson or a list of tips, but something deeper, something that sits with you, steady and unshaken, even when the world around you keeps moving fast. And once you feel that, even for a moment, you realize you don't really want to go back to who you were before, because that version of you was always in a hurry, always reaching, always slightly out of sync with the moment he was in. And this version doesn't need to rush, doesn't need to prove, doesn't need to fill every silence just to feel real. He just is. And that's where everything starts to change. Not all at once, not in ways that are easy to measure, but in ways that matter, in ways that stay, in ways that don't disappear the moment things get uncomfortable again. Because now, when discomfort shows up, you don't run from it. You sit with it, you let it speak, and you realize it was never there to break you. It was there to show you exactly where you've been avoiding yourself all along. At some point, after all the noise settles, after the small habits start stacking in your favor, after you've had enough quiet moments to actually hear yourself think without rushing to escape, you begin to realize something that feels almost too simple to be true. And maybe that's why most people overlook it, because it doesn't sound impressive, it doesn't sell, it doesn't come with a dramatic before and after story you can package into something viral. It just sits there, quietly, waiting for you to notice it. The way you live your life day to day is the only thing that ever builds anything real, and everything else is just performance layered on top of it. And Eric didn't wake up one morning suddenly transformed into someone unrecognizable. There was no clean break, no cinematic shift where the old version of him disappeared and a new one took over. It was messier than that, slower, more human. He still had days where he caught himself slipping, speaking too quickly in a meeting, checking his phone out of habit when a conversation slowed down, over-explaining a point because a part of him still wanted that quick nod of approval, that small signal that said, "You're doing fine." And every time it happened, there was this brief moment of awareness, not judgment, just recognition, like catching your reflection in a window and realizing you've seen that version of yourself before. And instead of spiraling into frustration or pretending it didn't matter, he'd just adjust, mid-conversation sometimes, slow his words down, let the sentence end where it needed to end, instead of dragging it further than necessary. And those corrections, small as they were, became part of the process, not a failure of it. Because that's another thing nobody really tells you. You don't outgrow your old habits in a straight line. You circle around them, you revisit them, you see them from a different angle each time until they lose their grip on you. And over time, the gaps between those moments get wider, the pull gets weaker, and what used to feel automatic starts to feel optional. And that's where a different kind of confidence starts to take root. Not the loud, performative kind that needs to be seen and validated, but a quieter, more stable version that doesn't depend on how the room reacts to you. Because you're no longer measuring yourself in real time based on other people's responses. You're measuring yourself against something internal, something steadier. Like whether you stayed present in that conversation, whether you spoke with intention instead of urgency, whether you held your ground when it would have been easier to shrink just to keep things smooth. And those metrics, they don't show up on paper, no one tracks them, no one rewards them directly, but they shape everything. They shape how people experience you, how they respond to you, what they expect from you moving forward. And eventually, without any announcement, without any formal acknowledgement, your role in the room starts to change, not because you demanded it, but because you became consistent in a way most people aren't. And consistency, real consistency, is rare, especially when it comes to how someone carries themselves under pressure. And that's what people start to trust, not your words alone, not your ideas in isolation, but the way you show up repeatedly, day after day, in moments big and small, when things are easy and when they're not. And Eric began to notice that trust building, not in grand gestures, but in subtle shifts. People asking for his input a little more often, pausing when he started to speak instead of talking over him, giving his words space to land. And the irony in all of it was that he wasn't trying to achieve any of this anymore. He wasn't chasing respect the way he used to, because he understood now that chasing it was the very thing that kept it out of reach. Instead, he focused on the habits, the small decisions that felt almost insignificant in the moment, but carried weight over time. And that's where the real lesson sits, not in some abstract idea of be more confident, but in the very practical, almost mundane reality of how you move through your day, how you walk into a room when no one is paying special attention, how you respond when someone disagrees with you, how you handle silence when there's an opportunity to fill it with unnecessary words. Because those are the moments where your patterns either reinforce the old version of you or build something new. And if you strip everything else away, all the advice, all the strategies, all the noise, it comes down to this simple question that most people avoid because it doesn't have a quick answer. Are you willing to change the small things that no one else sees, consistently, without immediate reward, long enough for them to become who you are? Because that's the cost, not in money or time alone, but in patience, in awareness, in the willingness to sit through discomfort without escaping it. And not everyone is willing to pay that. Most people want the result without the process, the feeling without the repetition, the outcome without the quiet work that builds it. And that's why the gap exists. Not because some people are chosen and others aren't, but because some people decide, quietly, without making a show of it, that they're going to show up differently, even when no one is watching, even when it doesn't seem to matter yet. And over time, that decision compounds into something undeniable. Something that doesn't need to be explained or justified. It just shows in the way they carry themselves, in the way they speak, in the way they exist in a space without needing to fight for it. And maybe that's where this leaves you, not with a checklist, not with a set of rules to follow perfectly, but with something more useful, a point of reflection. Because if you're honest, really honest, you already know where your patterns are working against you. You felt it in those moments where you rushed when you didn't need to, where you spoke just to avoid silence, where you looked away instead of holding your ground. And the question isn't whether you're capable of changing that. You are. The question is whether you're willing to pay attention to it, consistently, long enough for it to actually shift. And if you are, then you don't need to chase confidence anymore. You build it, quietly, the same way Eric did, one decision at a time, one moment at a time. Until one day, you realize you're not trying to be seen differently, you just are. And if this kind of conversation resonates with you, if you're the type who's not looking for noise but something a little more grounded, something that actually holds up when life isn't scripted, then stay close. There's more to unpack, more to question, more to understand. And you don't have to figure it all out at once. Just don't go back to sleep on yourself now that you've seen what's possible.